Good morning. Hemshech Chaim Beis. At the conclusion, discussing the yichud of the two yichudim, yichud Tata, yichud Ilah, Shema, and Baruch Shem, or Hashem Elokeinu and Hashem Echad, which in turn informs and harnesses the animal soul. Should be v'haftas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, b'shnei yitzarecha, also nefesh habamis. And with that, the Rebbe Rashab concludes what that argus is, that existence itself becomes one with the divine as it is from the perspective of Atzmos. That was the end of Ayin Beis. However, he did not finish the discussion of how that affects the animal soul, and what Ner Mitzvah is, and what Torah Ohr is, and other details that we reviewed when we began this whole exercise that we're doing now, which is learning the source material of where that that section in Ayin Beis comes from, and that is namely the Maimer Mika Hashem Elokeinu Magbiya L'Sheves Hamashpili Lidas B'Shamayim Va'aretz in Torah Ohr, which is what we're now learning, the Maimer Torah Ohr, the Biur on the Torah Ohr, which is what we're middle of. And then we shall learn the Mitler Rebbe's Maimer and then go back and see how that all informs and helps us understand the bigger picture of Ayin Beis. But while we're doing it, I'm also pointing out the sections in Ayin Beis that this is addressing. So where are we? After a discussion on what Ner Hashem Nishma Sodom is, that it is the Ner that includes a wick, the divine soul manifesting in the body, that transforms the shemen, the seichel of the nefesh hasiklis, nefesh hachayunis, nefesh habamis, into fuel for divine love, light. And in addition, it has the strength of mitzvah and Torah. Ner mitzvah, also the wick of a mitzvah immersed in physical reality, the shemen of the physical universe that helps catapult the neshama to even higher levels of creating a ner mitzvah, the mitzvahs of Hashem, the makif, that elevates it to a place that the neshama wouldn't get to on its own, and ultimately converting and transforming the animal soul to the Torah Ohr, that seichel of the animal soul and of existence becomes a seichel alikir, seichel of Torah, chakim v'lei b'chochmi yediyah, an intelligence that leads us to a place that's beyond intelligence, a higher reality. So after explaining that, the conclusion of the Maimer is going back to the pasuk hamagbi l'sheves, how this pasuk. In this pasuk, you find these two ideas: the mitzvah and the Torah, hamagbi l'sheves. So, middle of the word hamagbihi, and we'll soon get to l'sheves. What's hamagbihi? He said, the yud after the hey is what a mitzvah does. It's mamshech a yud within a dalet of Malchus. Malchus on its own is less lamagam klum. So it's mamshech the yud turning the dalet into a hey, and then in that process, the yud elevates. All the way, it elevates Malchus of Atzilus to Malchus of Ein Sof. And the bracket that we learned till the end of the paragraph on page 40a, he said, explained it with a Zoya and Yehi Shem. What's Yehi Shem? Yud, Hey, Yud, Shem. So Yud is Chochma, Yud Ilah, Hey is Binah, Hachavar Recheves Hanar. So, and the Yud is the Yud Tata of Yesod. So when you want to be Megala Yeshem, to have a Gilead Malchus, which is what the mitzvah accomplishes, you need the Hamshacha from Yehi, Yud, Hey Yud, the Chochma Binah, as it goes into Yesod Yud Tata, which in turn illuminates and elevates Malchus. Or he says illuminates, reveals within Malchus. And more specifically, based on that Rizal, this is Yesod Abba, that you saw the Yud begins in Chochma itself, there's the Yud. And then there's the Yud of Yesod Zah. And those Yudin, as the Zohar says, are Kagavna. The way it is about the beginning, that's how it is at the end. They become seamless connection. That's the Yehi Shem. So Chochma refers to the Nakuda. Everything starts with a spark, a Nakuda. Then it expands in the Hey. Then it's Nimshach in the Bris, which is Yesod. And as it is above the Yud above to the Yud below, the Yud is also indicates on Bittul. So that's how you mamshich into Malchus. This is also, he said, the yud of that's added by Pinchas, because Pinchas was mesaken to begam habris of Zimri. Zimri desecrated the bris in his behavior. So Pinchas was given a yud. The yud is yesod, that is the healthy, the kedusha of kedusha. That's the tikkun. The yud shouldn't say so, but Pinchas, yeah, because he was mesaken the begam. Good. Final thing he brought from the Ramaz that the yud is the milia of hey achrein of shemab said abba. Good. So that explains the hamagbi, the yud that follows the hey in hamagbihi, explaining what the Alter Rebbe said about that yud. Now we'll continue learning in the next paragraph, which is about 3/4 down the page, mem beis, mem omid beis, which mem omid aleph, page 40a. Okay. Unless somebody has a question on what I just summed up, I'm ready to continue learning. Any questions? Ubir Hadvarim. The new paragraph, the pages can be found at ayinbeis.com if you want to follow along. Ubir Hadvarim, who an explanation of these ideas is, like we see, Shehariya mispashetes v'nimsheches lamata yesem in chush hashmiya. You're going to compare now the power, the sense of vision to the sense of sound, of listening. So you saw it. So riya, when a person sees something, it extends and extends and it's further lower than shmiya. He's going to explain what that means. Shmiya, when you hear something, what are you hearing? You could hear the sounds, a sound and speech and words. He hears the voice and the words of his colleague, of his friend. That's what hearing is. It only goes as far as the voice and the words. But Shmiya does not have the power and the ability to grasp something that's physical. It's sound. Sound is far more ethereal than what he's going to say about sight. Sight, you actually see an object. Whereas in hearing, you don't hear an object. You hear the sound of it, which is more refined than so it's not so lamata as Riya is. Mashenkin b'Riya, tefus masig asiyah gashmis. Mashenkin, by contrast, when you see something, you grasp and you're capable to contain something physical. So in other words, Riya reaches to a lower level than Shmiya does. In the context, when I say lower, he means here more tangible, more palpable, more concrete. V'hainu, and this means the lefisha Riya shorsha mebchinas Chochma. Reason for this is because Riya is rooted in a higher place, in Chochma. Like we see, the wise, the sages are called Einei Ha'eda, the eyes of the community, the eyes of the nation. This we learned, of course, in Ayin Beis. Whole piece about Riya. So here you see that he's connecting it to Riya, which goes back to something we learned also earlier that he said by Torah. He says, Amashpili Lires. Even though he didn't get to that yet, but we talked about Riya and Shmiya. But we'll see where he's taking this. So that's why they're called Einei Ha'eda, because Chachamim and Riya are connected. Chachamim are not just wise people, smart people. They see, they're visionaries. That's why they're called Einei Ha'eda. They can see. And seeing, it's also seeing like literally tangibly something in a physical sense. That's what he used to say. He doesn't say it here, but other places. Ezu Chacham Haroya Es HaNoilad. Who's the wise one that sees the birthing? He sees the consequence. He sees the implications of something. That's higher than Binah, which is the root of Shmiya, of hearing. So Shmiya is rooted in Binah, which is lower than Riya, which is rooted in Chochma. And because it's rooted higher, that's why it goes lower. as we know the rule, that the higher something is, the lower it falls, or the lower it can reach, I should say. So because it's rooted in a higher place of Chochma, that's why Riyah can actually grasp. That's why you say seeing is believing. There's something about seeing something that hearing, as powerful as hearing the story is, there's something that Riyah does that Shmiya does not do. And that's because it's rooted in Chochma, which is higher than Binah. Mashenke b'keich hashmiya, hanimshach b'Binah. By contrast, the power of sound, of listening, of hearing, which comes from Binah, lias nishpul, mashenke b'keich hashmiya, hanimshach b'Binah, lias nishpul kol kach lamata. But it means to say that Binah does not go down as low as it is with Chochma that goes all the way into Riyah b'Gashmis. The language is Mashenka b'Kayach b'Shmiya, Nimshach b'Binah, Lias Nishbol Kocha. Yeah. That does not go down as low. Shekol HaGavei Yeser, Yochel HaHashbel Asatse Lamata Yeser. Because the higher something is, the more it's capable of going down lower. Like we see. For example, Chassidus brings sometimes the wiser the person is, the more they can find examples, even for a very simple person. Someone that doesn't have that level of wisdom cannot go down that far. So basically, 2 points were made here. That Riyah is Tefes the Gashmias and Shmiya only the Ruchnias, only the sound. And the reason for that, because one is rooted higher. Chochma is opposed to Binah, which is the root of Shmiya. Okay. Any questions? Open. We'll soon see. Obviously, he's talking about Chochma and Binah, which was what he spoke about the Yud and the Hey. But let's see how he explains it. So now he says like this. Olachein, and for this reason, how's the connection here? The connection, the video, the sound, everything is good, stable?
You were breaking up a little bit. You were breaking up a bit. But you're better now. It's better now.
We can hear you, but your bandwidth is low, so your image shifts around slowly. But we can hear you.
Okay, you'll tell me if it gets worse. Okay. Ulechein, and due to this that we just described, Riyah Shmiya and Chochma Binah, Ulechein.
Okay, looks like. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. He lost it.
Okay. Yitzhak, you want to let him know?
Yeah, I'm testing him. Yeah, I am.
Thank you.
Why, he can't tell?
He might be able to. I mean, I did text him, so I don't know what he's getting, what he's not getting. Though in WhatsApp, when someone can see what your text or has seen it, the check marks go blue. In this case, it doesn't look like he's seen it yet. I hope he's not just talking and talking.
No, like listen, a lot of people are using they're home from work. A lot of people, so they Zoom things. They have the turkey dinner on Zoom. Funny. It's an American holiday. We all celebrate it. It's Hodu Hashem, Hodu Hashem, and we eat a Hodu. It's funny. 2 different Hodus.
I can try calling him. Is that overkill, guys? Usually by now he would have said, I'm aware. I'm aware that it's not working.
Patience.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe he's having trouble getting on. He might be having trouble getting on. So it would be a good idea if you called him so we can know what's going on.
Yeah. Sometimes he has to reboot his system, and that just takes time. I'll give it another minute or two. Sometimes when I call him and he's already aware of it, it just makes him more stressed out because he knows it's not working, and he's doing his best to get it going again. He doesn't need me calling him to tell him that. I mean, he appreciates I'm trying to help, but sometimes it just makes him more stressed out. I'll give it one more minute. Yeah, I'm going to call. I'm going to disconnect from this. You'll see my computer, my desktop, but not my iPhone. And I'll be back.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I tried calling him. He didn't answer. So my guess is he knows it's not working, and he's doing his best to get it going. I suggested everybody stay in the class because if he can't do it at all, he'll cancel class. So the fact that he hasn't said anything means that he's trying and he hasn't given up yet. So I would encourage everybody to stick around another 5 minutes. He's fully aware that we're waiting. He's doing the best he can, and he'll either get it right in the next 5 minutes or so, or he'll cancel the class. I just that's his pattern. Yeah, he just posted he's rebooting his modem. Stay tuned. See, I know him by now.
Okay, I'm back here.
Baruch Hashem, welcome back.
Okay, so far we established here the difference between Riyah and Shmiya, rooted in Chochma and Binah. Chochma is higher than Binah, that's why it goes down and manifests more physically in a more tangible way than Shmiya does, which is only the sound as opposed to physically seeing an object. So now he goes back to what we learned earlier about Yesod. Remember, the Yehudi law was Yesod of Chochma, or Chochma in general is Yud, and especially Yesod of Abba, Yesod Abba. Yesod of Zah is the Yud Lamato. But Binah also has a Yesod. So he says like this, Ulechein Yesod Ima, the level of Yesod in Ima, in the mother, in Binah, Mistayim Bechazei. The Eina Nimshach B'Nehid Zah. It's Mistayim Bechazei in the, Chazei is the
chest.
The chest, yes. It goes into the chest. Eina Nimshach in Nehi. Nehi is a lower level. So when you say chest, it's more like Chagas. Chesed Gvur Teferes is the chest. The right, left, and the center of the heart area. Nehi is lower. It doesn't go to Nehi. So the Yesod of Binah in Ruchnius doesn't go as low as Yesod of Abba. It only goes to Chazei, to the chest, and only goes not to Nehi. Al the Yesod Abba, but the Yesod of Abba, Nimshach ad Yesod Zah. Like we learned, it goes all the way to the Yesod of Zah, which is the bottom of Zah. Yesod is already Netzach Ched Yesod, it's the lowest level in Zah, Yesod of Zah. Because Chochma is rooted higher, so it goes lower. Binah, the Yesod of Binah only goes to the Chazei. Kinehi, the Zah, Zeh b'chinas Asiyah shebatzilus. Nehi of Zah is the level of Asiyah shebatzilus. Let's explain. Remember, we've discussed a number of times Hiskalulus, that all the levels, like a hologram, exist within the levels. So even though there's Atzilus, Bria, Yitzira, and Asiyah, there's a Atzilus within Atzilus, there's Bria within Atzilus, there's Yitzira within Atzilus, there's Asiyah within Atzilus. Just like when we talk about Spheres, there's Chochma within Chochma, there's Binah within Chochma, and so on. The same thing, there's Chochma within Binah, and there's Binah within Binah. So in Atzilus in general, you would say the four levels, the four worlds would be Chochma would be Atzilus within Atzilus. Bria is Binah within Atzilus. Binah is Bria within Atzilus. Zah, in general, without Yesod, is Yitzira within Atzilus. And what he says now is Yesod, Nihi, meaning Chagas is this, as you say, the Kinihi de Zah, Bechinas Asiyah Shebatzilus. So Chabad, Chagas, Nihi are like three levels in Atzilus itself. Atzilus, Bria, Yitzira. Well, here he doesn't talk about Yitzira. He goes right to Asiyah Sheba Atzilus. So in Atzilus itself, it's a lower level than the Chazei, which is Chagas of Atzilus. V'amshocha zu ef shali is ki ima yedseid Abba. Ki ima yedei Yesod Abba b'chinas Riyah. And this Amshocha can only be through Yesod Abba because it comes from a higher place, which is the level of Riyah. That's why it goes down all the way into Yesod of Zah, Nehi, which is the end of basically the lower levels of Atzilus. So now he's explained, in addition to what he said before about Chochma and Binah, now he's explaining why the Yesod, he's continuing to explain the Zohar, why the Yesod of Chochma is connected, why the Yud law is connected with the Yud L'tata, Lamata. Remember in the Zohar, he said this language. He said that the Yud Tata Kegavne the Yud law, Sherusa Keseifa. We said the beginning is like the end. So now we understand why. Because Chochma is higher, that's why it can go all the way till the end to the Yud of Yesod of Zah. So it's Mimshach from Tamirin Mitamir Dechol Mitamirin. I'm reading the Zohar. Adarge Tata. He said Darge Tata. So the Tzemach Tzedek now, as I said, this is most likely from the Tzemach Tzedek, is explaining that why, in addition to, so far he explained Yehi is Yud, Chochma, Binah, and then it goes Yud into the Yesod, and that goes into Shem, Malchus. Now he's explaining why Dafke Yesod Zah is rooted in Yesod Chochma, because to go so low, like with Riyah, you need to go all the way up to Yesod Chochma, Yesod Abba. That's what he added in this piece now, with Riyah. That to go to something that is going to be manifest at a lower level, all the way to Latata, needs to come from a higher level. That's what he explained here. And Riyah Shmiya is the example for that, because Riyah is rooted in Chochma, and Shmiya is rooted in Binah. So Binah only goes that far. Chochma goes all the way into Yesod Chochma, goes all the way into Yesod Zah, into Nihi, into the Asiyah Shabbat Tzilis, because Asiyah is what the eyes see, the physical. Now, obviously, in Atzilus, it's not physical, but relatively speaking, it's Asiyah Shabbat Tzilis, whereas Binah only goes to Yetzirah or Bria Shabbat Tzilis.
Yesod Abba means Chochma, or means the Yesod in the Chochma. Same thing, Yesod Imo.
I'm not sure what you're saying. Abba means Chochma, Yesod Abba means the Yesod within Chochma.
So it's not Chochma Sheba Chochma, it's a Yesod in the Chochma.
That's what he said in the previous paragraph. From the Arizal, he said, Yesod Abba Mistayim be Yesod Zah. Yeah. Chochma in general is Yud. More specifically, the Yud in Chochma is the Yesod Sheba Chochma. Remember, Yesod is always the connection, the Iskashrus, between one higher level and the next level. That's where Yesod. So Yesod the Chochma, in the Chochma itself, is the Yud. Yeah. And now he goes back to Yehi Shem. But let me stop. Anybody has any questions on what I've said till here?
I have a question just in terms of the author. You said this is most likely the Tzemach Tzedek. Is that to say that the Alter Rebbe didn't author the Biurim to his Maimarim, that most of the Biurim are from later Rebbeim?
No, this is the bracket. Only the bracket, not the Biur itself. The Biur is from the Alter Rebbe. There's a bracket within the Biur. This whole thing is a bracket.
Oh, I see.
Remember, I pointed out it's a bracket that begins in this page column and goes to the next column. There's another bracket earlier. So I'm just talking about the bracket here, not the Biur itself.
I was confused why you said Tzemach Tzedek. I understand.
I explained it at length yesterday why I said it. So maybe were you here at yesterday's class?
I was here, but obviously not awake enough.
Yeah, I spoke about at length why I suggested Tzemach Tzedek. Okay.
Maybe I missed that part. Sorry.
Okay. Any other questions?
Rabbi, did you say Yesod is the connector? I thought Malchus is the connector.
I explained yesterday at length that Yesod is the male counterpart. When the male and female come together, the Yesod is the reproductive organs of the male that's mamshich into Malchus. Malchus on its own is a makabel, a recipient.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now he says like this. V'zeu inyan Yehi Shem. Going back to the Zohar, Yehi Shem. Shaliyas hashpoah b'bchinas Malchus hanikra Shem. V'nikra gamken.
We're losing you again. At least on my end, I can't hear you.
Yeah, he's frozen.
I'm frozen. You don't hear me?
Now we hear you again.
Just came back.
In and out.
Okay, let's continue going. Let's see what happens. Okay. So now he says, V'zeu inyan Yehi Shem. Remember, Yehi Shem is the Gilead Malchus that comes from the Chochma Yud, Hey, Chochma Binah into Yesod. The final Yud is Yesod. So he says, Shaliyas hashpah, b'chinas Malchus hanikra Shem. In order for there to be the hashpah into Malchus, which is called Shem, Yehi Shem. V'nikra gam ken Asiya Sheba Atzilus. So both Yesod and Malchus of Atzilus are called Asiya Sheba Atzilus, who gam ken al yidei Yud Dafke. It also comes from the Yud, Dafke from the Yud. Shehu b'chinas Yesod Zo, sheboy meir Yesod Abba. That's the level of Yesod Zo, where there he radiates Yesod Abba, because Abba, like Chochma, goes all the way down. That's why, like Riyah, goes all the way into the lowest level, as opposed to Shmiya, Binah, which doesn't go that far down. Zel Pirish Yehi. And this is the meaning of the word Yehi. Yud K, the first two letters is Hem Chochma Binah. The Yud is Chochma, the Hey is Binah. By Yud Hasheni, in Yehi, the final Yud, the third letter, Zeu Tzadik Yesod Elam. That's the level of the Tzadik, that is Yesod Elam, the level of Yesod. It's the foundation of the world, meaning the Yud of Yesod Zah. And that is Nimshach into Malchus. That transmits into Malchus. Va'ayin Oid, and look further. B'Zoyar Chele Gimel, in third volume of Zoyar, Daf Reish Lamed Vav Amud Beis, which he already quoted before by Pinchas. Me'inyan b'china zu de Yud Zeh, where it talks about this level of the Yud that we're discussing here. So that was the Zohar about Pinchas, why you add a Yud into Pinchas. He's telling us to look there. So this paragraph essentially added the point why the highest goes down to the lowest. So it adds an element in the interface that we've been discussing of Hamash, of a Magbi, of the highest going into the lowest in Atzilus, the Gilead and Malchus, and therefore that helps us understand the idea what a mitzvah does, that the mitzvah elevates Malchus all the way up to the highest levels. Okay.
Why is he using Tzaddik Yesod?
He's going to continue to discuss this now. So we're not finished yet. The topic is not over, but that's what he added here in this paragraph. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry. What did you say?
Why is he saying a new expression? Vayud Sheni, Zehu Tzaddik Yesod Olam. We know it's Yesod the Zot.
This is many times in my Morim, he may add later, he adds another expression. Tzaddik Yesod Elam is referring to the level of Yesod. Why didn't he say it earlier? I can't tell you.
It's referring also to breeze. Yesod, to breeze.
Of course, that's the connection. That's the whole connection. That's the only connection. That is the connection. Tzaddik Yesod Elam, Yesod of Zah is Yesod Elam, Yesod the foundation. So
like exactly he said about Pinchas before.
I'm saying that's exactly why he's bringing it. 1 second. That's why he's bringing Tzaddik Yesod Elam, the bris. Exactly correct. I thought you're asking me why he didn't bring it earlier.
That is also the
level of Yesod, the level of bris of Yesod Zah. So he makes that statement. Why didn't bring it earlier? Whatever. Are you asking me something or what? Is there a question on the table here?
No, the question is what you mentioned. Why didn't he bring it before? Maybe
I can't tell you why. This is not uncommon. In my Morim, there are many times as the topic is discussed, sometimes more details are added. Okay. Any other questions before we continue? V'hinei, and now, kishamalchus mekabelas gilui de b'chinas yud, when Malchus receives this gilui of yud from Yesod, which is rooted in Yesod Abba, Oz nasis medalad hey. when this Yud is revealed when you say there's Mamshech, its power into Malchus, then Malchus, which is Dalet, becomes a Hey. Like we discussed, a Dalet is two legs, a roof and a right leg, like an inverted L. And when you add a Yud, it becomes a Hey. So now he's going to continue to explain what that means. Next column, Mem Beis. Mem column, second column, Mem B. Ulechein, lefizeh move on. And that's why, and according to this, it's understood, Gam came Pirush HaMagbi, the meaning in the word HaMagbi. Remember, he began with the Yehi Shem from the Zohar to explain what the Magbi. So now he's going to explain it. Shaliyas HaMalchus, but Malchus the Ein Sof, who Gam came al Yidei Yud, Shebetecha Hey. That the Aliyah of Malchus, just like we just said, that Malchus from a Dalet becomes a Hey through the Yud of Yesod, which comes from Yesod Abba, Chochma. So now he's saying that's also the meaning Magbi, that the elevation of Malchus, of Atzilus, all the way to Malchus of Ein Sof, is also through the Yud, Shebetecha Hey. The Yud that's inside the Hey. Shehu Mashanim Shachla Ha'odem Ein Sof. What is that referring to? That in this Malchus is Nimshach, a reflection from Ein Sof, of Malchus of Ein Sof, Ukemavur Le'il, as was explained earlier, Shekol Aliyah Hu Aidei Hamshachet Chila. So remember, Hamagbi, he's talking about the Aliyah that comes through mitzvahs from the bottom up. But we learned earlier, but if you remember by Makif, he said, before you have an Aliyah, you have to first have Hamshachet. Every Aliyah comes first through Hamshachet. That's why we put on talis and film before davening. So before there's Aliyah, you need Hamshachet Chila Milmaila, Hamshachet Milmaila. So that's the connection. Yehi Shem is the Hamshachet Milmaila from Yud, Hey, Yesod, the lower Yud, into Malchus, into Shem, and that also gives it the power to elevate Malchus all the way upward. So there's Hamshachet and there's Halah. B'hinei, and now, b'chinas Yud zeh shebeteich Hey shenimshach hayedei ha-mitzvah. This Yud that's within the Hey, that's transmitted through a mitzvah, because that's what the mitzvah does. Without a mitzvah, you don't have all this hamshacha. You just have a dalet. If you want the Yud, you need the mitzvah. Zehu b'chinas psila hanimshach l'teich haner. So now he's adding, that's the wick. This Yud, Shebetecha Hey, that comes to the mitzvah, that's the wick. Hanimshach l'teich haner, that is inserted into the candle. Kameshikosa b'zeya Pasha Pinchas. Like he writes in Zeya Pasha Pinchas, Daf Reish Yud Tes Omer Aleph, Ubamigdash Melach Kiven Dis Achet Psila. And Migdash Melech on that Zohar, he says, since the wick became united with it. So the wick is referring to the Yud that goes into the candle. That's the Yud of the mitzvah. So the Yud is now being compared to a psila, to a wick. By a day hamshacha zu, and when you have this hamshacha from mitzvah, this hamshacha of the Yud, nasa koyach aliyas hamalchus l'sharsha. That gives the power for the elevation of Malchus to its root up into Malchus of Ein Sof. That's what the mitzvah does.
Can I ask a question?
1 minute. Let me finish the subject and let's see how far he goes here. And let's look into Zayah, beginning of Parshat Tzav. Al pasuk Zeis Teres Ha'ela. On the pasuk Zeis Teres Ha'ela, I would have to look up what he says there. But this is, as I said, more indicators that it's a Tzemach Tzedek, because the Tzemach Tzedek is usually the one that brings many Zayas, connects them all. It's a classic Tzemach Tzedek style. Okay. So 1 minute. Let me read till the end of the bracket, and then I'll stop for questions. V'zehu pirish hamagbi, and that's the meaning of hamagbi, the elevation. Shamitzvah b'chinas psila. V'ner. The mitzvah is the level of the wick, and the candle, like we learned, the candle, primary part of the candle is the wick. Hamayla nefesh hasichlis, that elevates the nefesh hasichlis, which is the oil that elevates the intellectual soul. Kamosha lamayla aliyah shem ban al yidei hayud da'ab hanimshach hayidei mitzvah canal. Like it is above, that the elevation of ban. If you remember at the bottom of page 39d, he said it's the aliyah of birur of ban that becomes shem sag. You elevate the nefesh hasichlis, which is the aliyah shem ban, because initially the nefesh hasichlis is rooted in toyu. You're elevating it now. Ayidei yud the ab, because before he said that the yud is the hey achrena of shem ab. So Shem Ab is higher than Ban. That is the elevation of Shem Ban. Ban is Malchus on its own, like Daled. And the Ab is the Yud that turns it into a Hey. Shanim Shechayedeh Mitzvah canal. So that's a Magbi, that the Magbi, the Yud, the last Yud, is what elevates it. That's the mitzvah that elevates the Daled into a Hey, and then elevates it all the way to Malchus of Ein Sof. And look what it says on Pasha Shlach al pasuk v'haya lechem letzitzis be'inyan eish yud ve'eish hey. So look there where he talks about eish yud and eish hey, which is the difference between ish and isha. Is eish yud is the ish, and isha is eish hey. So he tells us to look there as well, and probably eish yud is the yud. He's talking about a yud again, but I have to look up as well to look up what he says there. That's probably the mimer from the Alter Rebbe on Shlach. The tzitzis eish yud eish hey. What does he say? Eish yud. Eish yud is the yud that goes all the way up. Okay, and with this he finishes the bracket that began literally a page before, the column before this one. So this is the explanation of the Hamagbiyah with the beard of Yehi Shem and the elevation that comes after the Hamshachim. So the Hamshachim is coming from above. The mitzvah is Mamshich that gives the ability to elevate. Okay. Any questions?
Yes, please. My question is, I understand the idea of the Hamshacha, the drawing down of the Yud, the higher Yud, which is, in this case, the Chochma of Atzilus coming down into Malchus of Atzilus. What I don't understand, let me add one more point, and I understand how doing a mitzvah is an aliyah. It's a reaching up. It's lamata lamayla for the individual doing the mitzvah. That I get, but I don't understand how the elokus, the Yud, creates a hala. It's a hamshach. It's coming down. It's infusing Malchus with some additional elokus of the mitzvah, doing the mitzvah. But I don't understand what is in the nature of the yerida of the elokus of the higher level of Atzilus coming in the Malchus. What about that creates an aliyah, a raising up of that?
So I refer you back to 39d as well as 38c, where he describes in detail why you need to have, before the aliyah, you need to have hamshachah. In other words, like he says, in order to elevate someone, you have to have something, they have to give them strength to be able to lift them up. So a mitzvah is drawing from above, like he said, like a slingshot, for example. It can shoot the stone a lot further than a stone can be thrown by human strength.
I see.
So he spoke about how a mitzvah is mamshech hamakif, that he said a few times the lashon, that lashon, like that's why he referred to. He said here again. He said before the words. He said these words that, like we said, so without a mitzvah, we have ner Hashem nishma sodom. There's no hamshach. There's completely the neshama has in it the divine flame. the divine wick, you could say the wick, it has the power to contemplate on Shema and Yichud and Baruch Shem and Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, which in turn impacts the animal soul. But that's not with additional resources. Now comes a mitzvah. Hashem gives us a gift. Ratzon Elyon. I'm telling you, here's a mitzvah of tzitzis, talis, tefillin, other mitzvahs. It's an additional thing. The mitzvah is hamshacha of a makif elyon, ratzon elyon. And when you do this mitzvah, you're going to be drawing from a very high place, which in turn will allow you to elevate much higher than you could have the neshama on its own.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
what does it mean? Go back.
He elaborated on this earlier, as I said. Elaborated. Relatively speaking, spoke about it on 39D and 38C.
What does it mean that the mitzvah is the psilo hanimshach letoich haner? What is the ner?
You could explain it a few ways. You could say the ner means the whole picture. A ner consists of all three things. So, a ner also has the candle, has the keli. The ner is the keli, and the psila that's placed inside it. That's one way you could say it. You could say he means a psila hanimshach letoich haner, meaning that in the ner, the psila part of it, the wick. That's what Pashtus is what he means. You could also say that ner here may refer to shemen. It's the wick that is manifesting and inserted in Gashmis. I don't think that's what he means here. It doesn't sound right. But he does say, again, Shem Psila, mitzvah psila v'ner. Afterwards, he says psila v'ner. That the mitzvah is psila v'ner, the wick and the candle. Hamayla nefesh aseh. So I think he really is just trying to say that element of the psila that's placed inside when you build a ner, a candle. You have a keli where you put the oil in, and you place a psila within it. That would be my simplest explanation.
Okay. And what does it mean? Aliyas Shem Ban Alidei Hayud De'av.
I just explained it, didn't I? I told you to look back at the bottom of 39D. He said that the Nefesh Habamis, Nefesh HaSichus is Shem Ban, Behema is Gematria Ban. On its own, it's a Behema. You need to be elevated. That's the Avodah of the Yud. Earlier, he said in column 1 of Mem, he said that the Yud of Mili, the Shem Abba, Ab, who's Yuseid Abba. Yuseid Abba is Mamshech into Yuseid Zah, which in turn is Nimshach into Malchus. That's in Kabbalistic terminology. In simple English, it means that Malchus on its own is concealed, Lesla Magam Oklun Dalit. When you do a mitzvah, you're being Mamshech the Yud in it and turning the Dalit into a Hey, and that elevates the Hey all the way up to the highest levels. So Shem Ab is a high level. That's where you're Mamshech from the Yud of Chochma, you say the Abba, into Malchus, into Ban, and that elevates it. Okay?
Yeah.
Good.
Rabbi Jacobson, I've been
bigger cups because it's small cups. It's like gooey.
Rabbi Jacobson.
Yeah, I'm listening.
I've had this thought for a while. I was wondering when the Rebbe's been talking about the mashal of the Ner, all these pages, and he said there's three parts of the Ner: the oil, the pasila, and the light, the ore that it gives off. I've often wondered why he doesn't speak about the fourth element. It seems like, which would be what you just said, the keli, that you need for a Ner. You need the oil to be within something itself. The oil just has to be contained. It can't just be non-contained and have that. We wouldn't call that a ner. And I was wondering why he hasn't talked about that. What appears to be a fourth element and a very critical one in a candle, which is the container for the oil. And I was wondering what you want to say about that.
Obviously, he didn't see it as critical as you do, so I can't tell you why he didn't. Very hard to speculate why a Rebbe does not add something that's, to me, nothing's missing here. Everything seems to be clear. I mean, the mere fact that the shemen is the nefesh habamis already tells you it's contained, because the nefesh habamis, like he said, is limited, not as opposed to nefesh alikis. So that's, I think, pretty clear that seichel anushi and everything in this material world is confined. So maybe it's a given. It's just understood that he's not, in other words, doesn't have to discuss the keli. It's just a given that the shemen does reside inside of a keli. That would be my simple explanation. And if he needed to explain more, he would have, but it doesn't look like he wants to go there. Basically relies that we would understand that on our own, that the shemen is contained in the container, and the real focus here is how the psila enters into that oil and transforms it, the wick, into oil, into light. And he says many times that there are three things. He doesn't mention keli here. So there are places that actually do talk about a keli as well, but here he doesn't, because I would say, because the idea is understood without it. He's not going into the keli. It's not relevant here. And whatever is relevant, already the shemen is contained. We know that. He did say clearly the shemen is, that's why by davening it's limited. He said that clearly. The shemen is gvul.
No, I just understand two things. One, I understand what you just said, but I was wondering about the panemius of the keli, meaning that obviously it has to be there, but how's it mishtalshel? What levels the container of the oil coming from in Atzilus or above? What is that panemius, the keli of the oil? That's what I was interested in finding out. And where's it mishtalshel?
You're going to have to do, as I often say, your research. You're going to have to look in other Maimorim, because you're not going to find it here.
Is there a Maimor that you could point me to that would talk about that?
Shara Eira of the Mittler Rebbe, he talks about it.
Oh yeah,
and maybe other places. You have to go through the indexes. The only thing that comes to mind is the Shari Eira of the Mittler Rebbe, and maybe if you go through Sefer Likutim also, that's research. Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you find something that's relevant to us here, by all means, I don't recall Shari Eira, Shar Chanukah talks about the Maimorim Chanukah there. I think he talks about the keli.
Okay.
The Rebbe has some letters and some footnotes of the Rebbe's letters, Likutei Sichos, Volume 5. He also talks a little about the keli. I have some articles where I speak about quantum Chanukah. I talk about the container and the light. Oiris and Kalim essentially is what every flame is, a flame and a container, or flame and a wick.
I would have thought it's just something as simple as the goof. The container is the goof. That's where the intellectual faculty of the human resides. Or you could say it's the head. I don't know, but it's certainly something material, which is a keli.
Rishima. So it's from the level of Rishima.
Well, it would seem, but I mean,
if the goof and nefesh, but the goof, he sounded to me that the physical reality he compared to the shemen, to the oil, a number of times. That a mitzvah is in the shemen. Maybe with the neshama, it could be. I mean, listen, he doesn't say, you want to speculate? Fine, it's possible. As I said, it may say in other Maimorim. You'd have to look. I don't recall right now. Yeah.
The shemen is the chochma of the nefesh hasichlis. It's the chochma of the intellect. The shemen is not the body. It's right?
Yeah, but when it came to mitzvah, he said shemen is all physical matter.
So that does beg the question. Okay.
No, it could be in the neshama when ner Hashem nishma sodam. You could say the keli may be the body, and the shemen is the nefesh habam, is the seichel, the nefesh hasichlis or nefesh habam. It's possible. I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying it is not. He doesn't really talk about it at all here, so it may be discussed elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Rabbi Gold, I will also make an effort to see if I can, because it's a good question. I'm going to see if I can find something too.
Well, thank you. As I said, the issue of Helem Atzmi and how the keli itself is rooted in a place that's higher than Oir is beyond this discussion. I pointed out in Ayin Beis, he called that an inyan b'fnei atzmei, einoid. So I know that's where you want to go, but I would right now, he's focusing mostly on the Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam and Ner Mitzvah V'Torah is more in the Giluyim of Avayu Elikim, not so much about the very root of the container, which may well be why he doesn't bring Keli as well, because it's not not the scope of this conversation. Not that it doesn't have any value, but right now, I pointed out, he's not talking about the Helam Atzmi and the Kelim. He's talking more of the Giluyim of the higher levels, the lower levels, and so on.
That would seem to make sense. Thank you. That it's more, maybe there's a discussion of Helam Atzmi, the ultimate source of the Keli of the oil. And he's not getting into that at all. So maybe.
Well, on the other hand, the Nefesh Abamis, when it's transformed, it's the Tzimtzum itself is being transformed. So, but there we don't talk about it as a Keli. We talk about it still as a Nefesh, a Shemen. The Shemen within everything. Yeah. Now, again, there may be somewhere in my other Maimorim that can help, but I don't remember right now. And I would leave. But if you find anything, let me know. Okay, so now we'll stop here. We finished the bracket on 40b, and there's one last section, another like half a page more or less, till he finishes this mimer. So we're on column Mem Beis, 40b.